Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market, and let's figure out what is happening with Tesla stock, what we can expect moving into next week, and yeah, all that good stuff as per usual. So if you enjoyed this video, as usual, don't forget to hit that like button. It does help a lot. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live. The link is down below. If you're interested, for just $2.99 a month, you get access to all my intraday thoughts, post updates, technical analysis, options flow on Tesla, sometimes other stocks as well. Every day, the market is open for just, again, $2.99 a month, $3. Link is down below if you're interested. But yeah, let's just get right into it. Tesla closing the day, unfortunately, down on the day, about 1.15%, which compared to QQ, for instance, being ever so slightly green. It's a bit of an underperformance, but nothing substantial. And we're down a bit more in pre-market. Now, let's quickly reiterate what happened today, right? On the 1 hour chart, if we go over here, we had a massive gap down today, right? Massive gap down. I think we were down about 4% at the bottom of the day. We covered a good portion of it, which is nice to see. But, you know, this does still make this bearish thesis still very, very valid, in the sense that we're having a lot of issues around this massive, what used to be support and now turn resistance. Like, right, just take a look at this area. This is like probably the most perfect version of what you can expect to see, like, you know, when it comes to an old support turning into a resistance after you break down from it, right? Right here, obvious area that, you know, there was support here, there was demand here, etc. Massive gap down. And sometimes that's the thing that's unfortunate with pre-market and post-market hours. Sometimes these gap downs can really ruin a potential situation, potential, you know, bullish or bearish situation. And that's kind of what happened here. Massive gap down. Now essentially we came right back into it. It turned right into a resistance from support, and we went down even further. It came back into it again. Had a good shot here. Like, we were very close, right? You know, it was close, but unfortunately, like I said, you know, it wasn't the best close. We did end up pushing back down once again, still closing below. And remember how yesterday I said I'm personally neutral, but, you know, we got the news that came out for Tesla with China, how they're apparently like reducing, if I'm not mistaken, they're reducing their production, or essentially the demand is seemingly kind of low in China, and it's not good. And we had a massive gap down. Anyway, the point is we covered most of it, which is good to see. So at least that's nice. But there's still a lot of issues to be had here, right? The MACD is pretty much flipping bearish on the 1 hour. This is the 2 hour chart, right? The momentum is very, very slow. The RSI is below 50. But the thing I want to look at mainly is going to be the weekly chart, right? Obviously, we did close out a fresh week, which is good to see. But there's the one kind of important thing I want to take a look at on the weekly chart, which is going to be pretty simple. This candle right here, right? So this weekly candle that we have, there's two things that I personally see right away when I look at this. The first thing is that it's essentially a doji candle, right? Which signifies potential indecision or even maybe continuation to the downtrend, but more indecision I would give it, right? Which is neither really bullish nor bearish. On top of that, it is also an inside day candle, where you can see here, where is this darn drawing tool? I think it's over here. Right, the candle today pretty much is completely within the parameters of the previous week's candle, right? We have a inside, well, I guess not inside day candle, inside week candle, I guess in this case, on pretty low volume too, right? What does that mean though? It pretty much means indecision as well. But the good thing about this, and the thing that potentially can make this easier for us, you know, maybe traders or, you know, swing traders, or potentially even investors, really, if you're like looking to maybe buy the dip even further potentially or whatever, is this. And this is what I like about these kind of candles. When you get an inside day, week, whatever candle like this, the next week, it doesn't have to happen the next week. It could be even the week after, but let's just assume it'll happen the next week. Can give us a pretty easy way to determine as to where we overall go next. And the way you do that is by simply, if price next week, for instance, breaks below the low of the week's price from this week. So for instance, the low of this week, right, was 165.90, right? If we break 165.90 at any point next week, that's bearish. It's not guaranteed, but there's a pretty damn good chance that we just continue downwards. We just continue downwards even further. And that's kind of just what it happens, right? At the very least, back down to this 160, if not to what I still personally believe is still very achievable, coming down to about this 150 level, because there is still quite a lot of, you know, demand in this area, right? There's a massive order block sitting pretty much between 160 to 150, like massive. We barely, you know, briefly went into it last week, but, you know, there's still a lot of order block, you know, potential, if you will, to fill. So I still think that is very, you know, it's a possibility. It's a very real possibility. However, it's not guaranteed, because again, let's talk about the upside potential, right? On the flip side, if we break above this coming week, if we break above what this week's candle, the high of this week's candle, which obviously in this case is going to be about 178.18. If we break above that and we've set a fresher high and we break outside of this range to the upside, so again 178.18, that's good. That means that we can most likely resume upwards even higher, and most likely at the very least come up to about the mid 180s, potentially even higher. But that'll be the first level I'd be personally looking at, because as you can see here, as I zoom out, that's where, you know, a lot, like a huge spike of volume sits right over here. So the issue here is that even if we break above the high of this week's candle next week, right? So again, the 178-ish level, the upside potential isn't substantial, right? You know, maybe 185, which is still a, you know, 7-ish point move, which isn't too bad. But, you know, we are going to be entering some pretty substantial resistance regardless with this volume, right? With potentially still retesting this breakdown that we had over here on this, you know, ascending channel-ish that we had, if you will, or ascending, you know, trend line that we had right here that we, you know, zigzagged or had the bear flag develop pretty much as we hugged alongside it over here. And then we ultimately came below it, came back, retested it on the same week, went down even further. And now we're kind of sitting in this limbo land. So my issue with Tesla here is that even if we do, you know, break above next week, this week's high, again, the 178-ish level, the upside still feels kind of limited. Like it feels like there is like a substantial amount of headwind. Like we would need essentially either some sort of catalyst, like news catalyst or something like that, maybe even earnings, right? You know, maybe it'll take earnings, maybe earnings will be a surprise, who knows, in a good way, of course, or a squeeze, some kind of maybe short squeeze for whatever reason, but usually you don't get a short squeeze unless some catalyst essentially enables it, right? So my only problem here is the fact that even if we do break up you know, above that level, there's just so much headwind above. Like it's just, the chart still looks pretty hideous in my opinion, right? It doesn't look very bullish. Like, I'll be completely honest. That's why even if we get to 185, maybe 190 best case, there's so much volume up here that I can't imagine going much higher. Like I really can't. But again, we'll take it level by level, day by day, week by week. Just, you know, something to note, I guess, to understand. Now, one indicator I'm playing with that's pretty nice is this kind of a regression bands, which is a pretty cool indicator where essentially you have, look at it on the 4-hour chart, it's a little bit easier. But essentially what you have is you have a lot of bands here, right? It's kind of like a Bollinger Band and like a momentum band mix, right? The white line in the center is not exactly, but pretty much similar to the 20-day moving average, which is one of my favorite moving averages now. I think this thing's amazing. But what also is the fact that, you know, it's the mean, right? Price almost always reverts back to the mean. Whenever you get, and think of these bands, like these two yellow ones and the red one, and again at the top 2 yellow ones and red one, as like levels. The more that they're broken, the more the price becomes overbought or oversold. So if you get to like the first band down here, price is, you know, okay, kind of oversold, potentially looking for a bounce. Second band, like we did over here, price is getting pretty damn oversold now. And if you get anywhere near the red band, price is like substantially oversold, and you know, most likely sooner than later you'll revert roughly back to the mean, which is the white line. That's kind of how this one plays out, and it works pretty well, right? Obviously the only thing that, you know, it might be not so great at, as no indicator is perfect, is, well, if you have massive gap downs on, you know, earnings, news, whatever, right, you can kind of hug the bottom pretty substantially. But even then, you know, you can see here we hugged the bottom way past below it, and you know, we reverted back pretty close to the mean pretty quickly, right? Only took a bit of days. Anyway, that's just an indicator I'm playing around with. But the reason I bring this up is because, you know, we are unfortunately below the reversion line, the mean line, the 20-day moving average. I'll just call it 20-day moving average. It's pretty much a 20-day moving average, right? If I actually, this is the actual 20-day moving average, pretty much the same. It's almost identical. Anyway, you know, we are below it. That's unfortunate, right? Being below this is not ideal. That does show some bearish momentum potentially, right? We have the stochastic over here, momentum indicator, flipping bearish, right? You can see the green cross the red, you know, and it's signaling some, you know, a slowdown in the bullishness, and, you know, now potentially resuming bearishness. So take that into account whatsoever, however you will as well. So those are the things I'm not exactly excited about to see on, you know, the 4-hour chart here. The daily chart, same idea, right? You know, we're still holding the bottom of this channel, which is great. And, you know, we are kind of actually, you know, we bounced pretty much almost perfectly off the bottom of the first yellow line right here today. You know, we gapped down right into it and bounced right off of it almost to perfection. But the 20-day, again, just calling it that, is pretty much sitting at 180, right? It's a ways way above us. So there's a lot of work to be done just to get to it, let alone break it, similar to the 21 EMA, which is sitting pretty much almost identical to it. So the point I'm trying to make here is, again, Tesla, in my opinion, is still bearish. It's still bearish. It's still in a downtrend. There's no questioning about that. And at the very least, we'd want to be breaking above this and the 21 EMA, which is pretty much at 180 bare minimum to even start considering a move higher to potentially the upper band right here, closer to the low 190s, we'll say. So that's kind of what I'm still eyeballing, and that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at to keep it really simple. Honestly, that's what I like about this indicator. It's just simple. It's simple. It just works. It just makes sense. On top of that, of course, don't forget we have this downtrend that we're still in, right? We haven't broken beyond this downtrend, which is still going to be a bit of a problem, right? Until we break above this downtrend, the 21 EMA, the 20-day moving average. Things are still bearish, right? And even if we do that, then we're still coming into potentially this breakdown on the weekly, like I talked about, of this ascending trend line that we obviously broke down right here on this massive weekly candle right over here. 2 weeks ago, right? This massive red weekly candle. So that's why it wouldn't shock me if Tesla either goes sideways or even slowly bleeds back down to the 160s, maybe even the 150s. I personally don't see anything catapulting us back up into a bullish state. I could be wrong. Obviously, if I notice anything, I'll let you know. But that's the main thing I'm looking at right now and how I'm seeing it. Now, coupled with that, this options flow here is set to specifically $100,000 premium or higher, and specifically for next week. You can see every single expiration here is for next week. So I'm seeing, okay, it's a Friday. What are the what are the whales looking for next week? Mix of flow. But the main thing I'll be looking at is going to be this. We had almost 800K premium over here, calls 135, very much in the money, but for next week, so that's bullish, right? Almost a 300K as well, 170 call. But these were, earlier. One that came more recently, similar to this one actually, but 1.4 million puts that came in also for next week, 170 put, came in at pretty much 2:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's a little suspicious. That's by far the highest one. It's almost double the second highest, which is the 700 one right here, right? That's a little concerning. So some whale clearly thinks that there's more pain ahead for Tesla. So that's something I'm a little bit concerned about. And also why I don't think that, again, unless some catalyst, like if some catalyst comes out, if Elon comes out and says something, or Elon's like, hey, we have a new pay package, everything's good to go, to the moon we go, or something like that. Cool. That could be the catalyst that does catapult Tesla, potentially even triggers a short squeeze. That is a possibility. But are we going to sit here and rely on something like that for, like, let's say next week or the week after? Probably not. We're still waiting for his... He still promised us that he's going to give us a massive Tesla update like he did with SpaceX like 2 months ago now. We're still waiting on that. So sometimes you want to take things that Elon says with a massive grain of salt, because, just it is what it is. But the point I'm trying to make here is even on the weekly, right, came down to these levels twice, kind of held them roughly, and now you can see the same level right here coming back into it and rejecting, which isn't ideal. But again, if we ever break below this week's that just finished low or high, probably expect a move in that respective direction, at least for a little bit, is what I personally would suggest right now. That's the way I'm going to be most likely playing it, while slowly selling cash secured puts to slowly start building a position in the 160s and especially down in the 150s to 140s. That's kind of the main way I'm looking at it. And don't forget, if I zoom out all the way over here, we still have this massive trend line that I still personally think there is a possibility for Tesla to come back down to test, right? Kind of like how we started over here, came down here, created the trend line, and, coming back to Tesla one more time, which again would put Tesla, if it happens within the next few weeks, pretty much in the very low 140s. I still think that is a possibility. The stochastic is still showing a lot of weakness on the weekly, not showing any momentum getting ready to shift just yet, right? It's still crossed over to the bearish side. So until some of these factors start to shift, especially on the weekly with the MACD as well, I would be holding my breath for a massive move to the upside. Any move to the upside for now, in my opinion, seems like a selling opportunity until there's more stabilization, until we get more of a confidence reading from Tesla that, maybe it's finally bottomed out and maybe finally we can resume the uptrend, because God forbid the market starts to correct and Tesla is in this kind of situation, is all I'm going to say. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Thanks for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace. Or not tomorrow, Monday. Peace.